Mafia boss discovered dying female cop on sidewalk. What she said next made him freeze. The smell hit him first. Metallic, sharp, the unmistakable scent of someone who didn't have much time left. Bruno Novelli paused his solitary stroll through the warehouse district, his senses heightened by years of surviving in a world where hesitation meant death. A weak moan drifted from the narrow alley to his right, barely audible above the distant hum of the city that never acknowledged its darkest corners. Bruno's hand instinctively moved to the concealed weapon inside his tailored coat, fingers wrapping around cold metal that had saved his life countless times. What he found made even his hardened heart skip a beat. A woman slumped against a dumpster, her police uniform soaked with blood that appeared black in the dim streetlight. Her badge glinted, catching his eye like an accusation, reminding him of everything he stood against. The city's distant sounds faded to a dull hum as Bruno assessed the situation with calculating precision. 2 bullet wounds, visible through torn fabric, had missed vital organs by millimeters, the kind of lucky misses that suggested either divine intervention or an intentionally botched job. Rain began to fall, gentle drops washing blood into swirling patterns across the cracked concrete. Bruno glanced at his watch, a $30,000 timepiece that had counted down many life-or-death decisions before this moment, but never one quite so contrary to his established rules. Thunder rumbled overhead, nature's ominous soundtrack to the scene unfolding in this forgotten corner of the city. Bruno crouched lower, noticing the woman's service weapon was missing, her holster empty, another detail that spoke of execution rather than confrontation. Her badge read, Detective J. Reeves, the engraved letters partially obscured by a smear of blood that Bruno recognized as arterial. Professional experience told him she had perhaps an hour before blood loss became irreversible, the invisible countdown adding urgency to his decision. For 10 agonizing seconds, Bruno stood frozen in a standoff with his conscience, every instinct screaming to walk away. She represented everything that threatened his empire: law, order, the very system he'd spent a lifetime outmaneuvering. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing pools of pain-dulled hazel that somehow still held determination. "Please," she whispered, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth, her voice carrying the weight of someone who knew exactly what fate awaited. Bruno crouched beside her, keeping distance as if proximity to law enforcement might burn. "Who did this to you?" he asked, already suspecting the answer wouldn't align with the city's carefully constructed illusion of justice and protection. "My partner," she managed between labored breaths, each word clearly causing agony, "and half the precinct. They found out I was—" Her words trailed off as consciousness began slipping away like water through desperate fingers. In that moment, Bruno made a decision that would reshape the underworld and shatter the corrupt foundations of the city's police force. He scooped her broken body into his arms, feeling warm blood seep through his $5,000 suit, an ironic baptism. The weight of her in his arms felt like carrying a bomb into his sanctuary, yet something beyond reason compelled him forward. Perhaps it was seeing firsthand what he'd always suspected, that the line between criminals and cops was thinner than the public would ever believe. Would you trust a known criminal to save your life when your own colleagues tried to end it? Drop a comment telling us what you would do in this impossible situation. And let's continue with this shocking true story that proves sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected sources. He moved through shadows with practiced ease, this predator now protector, avoiding the cameras he'd memorized years ago. His driver's face registered shock, but asked no questions when Bruno slid into the back seat with the bleeding officer, barking an address that wasn't his main residence. Within 20 minutes, they arrived at a nondescript building that concealed one of his most secure safe houses. "Get my doctor here now," Bruno ordered, as he carried her through a hidden entrance, his most trusted guards exchanging glances that questioned his sanity, but never his authority. The emergency medical room, established for situations when his people couldn't risk hospitals, gleamed with equipment that would make some clinics envious. He placed her carefully on the sterile table, her blood creating a macabre trail from door to examination room. As his private doctor rushed in minutes later, Bruno stepped back, questioning the impulse that had led him to risk everything for someone sworn to destroy his world. "Multiple gunshot wounds, signs of beating," the doctor assessed clinically, cutting away the uniform to reveal the full extent of the brutality. "She needs a hospital," the doctor stated flatly, already knowing the response as he worked to stabilize his unexpected patient, monitors beeping with concerning irregularity as they tracked a heartbeat growing fainter by the minute. Bruno's face hardened into the expression that had made hardened criminals tremble. "That's not an option," he replied, rolling up his sleeves. "You've patched up worse in worse conditions. Whatever you need, it's yours. Just keep her alive." For 6 hours, the doctor worked tirelessly, extracting bullets that told their own story, standard police issue, confirming her whispered accusation. Bruno watched from the corner, his mind calculating the implications, opportunities, and dangers this situation presented to his organization. The night stretched endlessly, as machines kept her tethered to life, her skin ashen against the crisp white sheets now stained crimson. Bruno refused to leave, sending men instead to carefully investigate who she was, what she knew, and why her own would turn against her. By dawn, a file sat before him. Detective Jennifer Reeves, decorated officer, recently transferred to Internal Affairs. The pieces clicked into place with grim clarity. She had been investigating corruption within her own ranks when they discovered her true assignment. The file revealed a distinguished career, youngest officer promoted to detective in department history, highest case closure rate 3 years running, and recipient of the Mayor's Medal of Valor for a hostage situation, resolved without casualties. A woman whose dedication made her dangerous to the corrupt. Bruno's phone lit up with news alerts. Detective missing, foul play suspected. The department's official story already taking shape, carefully crafted to control the narrative. No mention of her internal affairs work, just vague references to dangerous investigations that might have led to her disappearance. Outside, the city continued its morning routine, unaware that the balance of power was shifting beneath the surface. Bruno watched sunrise paint golden light across the skyline, the view from his safe house revealing a metropolis whose gleaming towers concealed rot at its foundation. Jennifer's medical charts showed improving vital signs, her body fighting with the same determination that had likely characterized her police work. Bruno studied her face, peaceful in unconsciousness, seeing something of his sister's resolve in the set of her jaw, even in repose. Bruno's security chief entered with characteristic silence, placing surveillance photos on the table showing officers searching alleyways in the warehouse district. "They're looking for a body," he explained unnecessarily. "They don't know she survived the execution." The doctor emerged looking exhausted, but with the satisfied expression of someone who'd won against death. "She'll live, against all odds," he announced, washing blood from his hands. "But she'll need time, medication, and complete rest to recover fully." Bruno nodded, his decision already made, though it defied all logic in his world. "No one knows she's here," he stated, making eye contact with each person in the room. "And no one will know. This never happened. She doesn't exist until I say otherwise." When Jennifer finally regained consciousness 2 days later, panic flared in her eyes as she registered unfamiliar surroundings and the man watching her from across the room. She tried to move, wincing as pain reminded her body of its recent trauma. "The doctor says you shouldn't move," Bruno said calmly, remaining seated to appear less threatening, though the irony of a Mafia boss concerned with appearing threatening to a wounded officer wasn't lost on him. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. Recognition dawned slowly in her eyes, followed immediately by wariness. "You're Bruno Novelli," she whispered, the name causing visible tension in her weakened body. "Why would you save me? I'm a cop. Your enemy." Bruno approached slowly, pouring water from a crystal decanter before offering it to her. "Let's just say I'm curious why half the police force would try to murder one of their own," he replied, watching her struggle between desperate thirst and suspicion. Necessity won as she accepted the glass with trembling hands, drinking deeply before finding her voice again. "Because I found proof," she replied, strength gradually returning to her words. "Evidence that would destroy them all. Corrupt officers, judges, officials reaching to the top." Bruno's laugh held no humor, only bitter confirmation of what he'd always known. "And now they think that evidence died with you in that alley," he stated, studying her with newfound interest, seeing not just a cop, but a potential weapon more valuable than any in his arsenal. "Why help me?" Jennifer asked directly, her training resurfacing as she assessed her situation. Trapped, dependent on a criminal kingpin, yet inexplicably alive when her own brothers in blue had left her for dead. Bruno considered his answer carefully, knowing it would determine the course of what came next. "The enemy of my enemy," he offered simply, though both knew there was more, a complexity neither was ready to voice in this fragile moment of mutual vulnerability. He placed her badge on the bedside table, cleaned of her blood, but still carrying the weight of betrayal. "Your partner, Detective Paul Winters, Led the search for your body, Bruno explained, watching her face contort with pain deeper than physical wounds. 3 years as partners, Jennifer whispered, fingers reaching for the badge then pulling back as if it might burn. 3 years of having each other's backs while he waited for the perfect moment to put a bullet in mine. Bruno pushed a laptop toward her, opened to footage his men had recovered showing Winters laughing with the police commissioner outside a high-end restaurant known for hosting the city's elite. The corruption goes higher than you imagined, he stated matter-of-factly. Jennifer's hand clenched into a fist, knuckles white with rage and determination that impressed even Bruno. I need to finish what I started, she declared, struggling to sit up despite the pain etched across her features. Those files I collected can bring down half the department. And where exactly are these files now? Bruno questioned, already suspecting the answer, but needing confirmation as he helped adjust pillows behind her. This surreal moment of a crime lord aiding the recovery of law enforcement not lost on either of them. The ghost of a smile crossed Jennifer's face, the first since she'd awakened. Hidden where none of them would think to look, she replied with grim satisfaction. Insurance, in case exactly this scenario happened, though I never imagined my salvation would come from Bruno Novelli. The irony hung between them, creating a strange bridge across worlds that should never intersect. So, Bruno finally broke the silence. A cop who can't trust cops and a criminal who now harbors the city's most wanted missing person. An interesting predicament for us both. Jennifer held his gaze with surprising steadiness for someone who had nearly died. I propose a temporary alliance, she stated in a tone that had likely served her well in interrogation rooms. You want the corrupt officials off your back. I want justice. Our goals temporarily align. A ghost of a smile crossed Bruno's face, respect glimmering in eyes that rarely revealed his thoughts. They underestimated you twice. First your determination, then your resourcefulness in finding an unexpected ally. That kind of arrogance makes powerful men vulnerable. Jennifer attempted to sit up straighter, wincing as healing wounds protested the movement. My partner always said my greatest flaw was seeing the good in people, she admitted, irony lacing her words. Ironic that when he betrayed me, it was a man the law calls criminal who proved him wrong. Bruno poured 2 glasses of water, the domestic normalcy of the gesture at odds with their extraordinary circumstances. Labels, cop, criminal, good, evil, they're convenient simplifications that rarely capture reality, he observed, offering her the glass like a peace offering. The weight of their proposed alliance hung between them. 2 people raised to stand on opposite sides of an uncrossable line, now contemplating not just crossing it, but erasing it entirely. Outside, rain began again. Nature's reminder that boundaries are more fluid than humanity pretends. Bruno raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself by her boldness. And after? When your evidence is delivered and the corrupt are exposed? Do we return to our respective corners of predator and prey? He challenged, needing to understand her endgame. First, we survive and succeed, Jennifer countered, pragmatism overriding the black and white worldview her career had instilled. Then we'll see what's left of either of our worlds when the dust settles. Deal. 2 weeks passed before Jennifer could move without assistance, each day strengthening not only her body but the unusual connection between criminal and cop. Bruno provided physical therapy equipment, security measures, and intelligence on police movements throughout the city. The wall of Bruno's safe house transformed into an intricate web of connections, photos, documents, and strings linking corrupt officers to judges, politicians, and business leaders. Jennifer worked tirelessly, her law enforcement training creating a case that could withstand scrutiny. Your partner, Winters, meets weekly with Judge Hartford at the Riverside Club, Bruno noted, placing surveillance photos on their makeshift investigation board. My men confirmed they're discussing case dismissals for certain connected individuals. Jennifer nodded grimly, pinning the new evidence alongside financial records showing suspicious deposits to both men's offshore accounts. Hartford signed the warrants that have failed to find sufficient evidence against your competitors while targeting your operations specifically. Bruno leaned against the table, analyzing the pattern with the strategic brilliance that had built his empire. They've created a perfect system, using law enforcement to eliminate competition while protecting their partners. Selective enforcement as a business model. The evidence wall grew more complex by the hour, red strings connecting seemingly unrelated incidents into a tapestry of corruption. Jennifer applied her investigative methodology to organizing their findings, creating categories that revealed the systematic nature of the abuse of power. Outside their secure location, The city continued its daily rhythms, citizens unaware of the shadow government operating within the structures meant to protect them. News reports celebrated drug busts and corruption investigations that, viewed through their new lens, were clearly strategic eliminations of rivals. Jennifer's police academy graduation photo sat on the corner of the table, a reminder of ideals that reality had failed to match. Bruno observed her, glancing at it occasionally, not with regret, but with resolute determination to honor the oath she had taken, even if the institution had betrayed it. Bruno's network proved invaluable, providing access to information and locations Jennifer could never have reached through legal channels. His drivers transported her to surveillance points, his hackers accessed protected systems, and his contacts verified intelligence from multiple sources. Their first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A courthouse clerk who owed Bruno a favor produced sealed grand jury transcripts revealing the deliberate tanking of cases against prominent business figures connected to Commissioner Gregory Wallace. "Wallace is the key," Jennifer insisted, tapping his photo at the center of their conspiracy web. "Every corrupt thread leads back to him, but we need concrete evidence that will stand up in court, not just connections and theories." Bruno's phone buzzed with a message that made his expression darken. "Your funeral is tomorrow," he announced, showing her the public announcement. "Closed casket, of course, since they never found your body. The department is calling you a hero, while privately celebrating your elimination." Jennifer's face remained impressively neutral, though her eyes betrayed the hurt. "Perfect opportunity," she stated pragmatically, surprising Bruno with her resilience. "All the key players will be in one location. We could plant surveillance devices while they pretend to mourn." Before Bruno could respond, his security chief burst in with urgent news. "Police raid at the downtown warehouse, boss. They're hitting our main distribution center right now." Bruno's eyes narrowed, instantly connecting this unprecedented move to their investigation. "They're getting nervous," Jennifer analyzed, suddenly seeing the bigger picture. "Wallace must suspect I survived and is trying to draw you out, hitting your business to force a reaction that would expose your involvement or my location." Bruno's response showed why he controlled the city's underworld. He remained utterly calm, issuing precise orders to his network. "Let them take the warehouse. Minimal resistance, no casualties. Make it look like we were caught off guard." Across town, Detective Winters led the raid, his face twisted in frustrated rage as his team discovered only a fraction of what intelligence suggested would be present. The warehouse yielded enough to justify the operation, but nothing that would significantly damage Bruno's organization. The chess game escalated as Bruno and Jennifer monitored police communications, watching their opponents grow increasingly desperate. "They know I'm alive," Jennifer concluded, recognizing the pattern of searches concentrated near Bruno's known territories. That night, as security patrols doubled around the safe house, Bruno found Jennifer struggling to change her bandages, her face contorted in pain, yet refusing to ask for help. Something in her stubborn independence reminded him of himself, breaking down walls he'd built over decades. "Let me," he offered, taking the medical supplies from her trembling hands, their fingers brushing in a moment that lasted longer than either anticipated. The silence between them grew charged, as he carefully tended wounds inflicted by those sworn to protect her. Jennifer studied his face as he worked, seeing beyond the criminal facade to the man beneath, disciplined, intelligent, and possessing a personal code as rigid as her own, though oriented by different stars. "Why did you really save me that night?" she asked softly. Bruno's hands paused, the question penetrating defenses he rarely lowered. "My sister," he finally admitted, voice barely audible. "She was a prosecutor who discovered judicial corruption 5 years ago. They made her death look like a random mugging." The revelation shifted something fundamental between them. No longer simply allies of convenience, but two people connected by parallel losses, mirror images on opposite sides of a blurred line. Jennifer's hand covered his, offering comfort that would have seemed impossible weeks earlier. Their moment of connection shattered as explosion sounds rocked the night, not at their location, but close enough to signal danger. Bruno's phone lit up with urgent messages as security feeds showed 3 of his businesses across the city in flames. "Psychological warfare," Jennifer analyzed, as they watched the destruction through security cameras Bruno accessed remotely. "They're escalating, hoping to force a mistake. This kind of coordination requires resources only available to someone with Wallace's authority." Bruno's expression remained controlled, but Jennifer had learned to read the subtle tells of his anger. "These businesses were legitimate," he stated flatly. "Restaurants, a laundromat, a grocery store, places that employed people from neighborhoods where jobs are scarce. The community impact of Wallace's retaliatory strikes became evident as local news showed families gathering outside the destroyed businesses, their livelihoods suddenly collateral damage in a war they didn't know existed. Bruno made quiet calls ensuring they would receive compensation, revealing a side of himself few had witnessed. Jennifer studied maps of the targeted locations, identifying a strategic pattern invisible to casual observers. "They're isolating your support network," she noted, tracing the geographical distribution, "cutting off your connections to neighborhoods that give you information and protection." A notification on Jennifer's secured tablet showed her obituary had been published, the department's official narrative portraying her as a dedicated officer killed in the line of duty. The manufactured tragedy included quotes from Winters expressing devastation at losing his partner, his hypocrisy making her stomach turn. Bruno received word that 3 of his most loyal lieutenants had been arrested on fabricated charges, their bail denied by Judge Hartford without explanation. "They're trying to strip away my infrastructure," Bruno observed, his voice carrying the quiet determination that had sustained him through previous challenges. The attacks continued through the night, precisely targeting enterprises that supported communities neglected by the city's official development programs. Bruno worked tirelessly, arranging assistance for displaced workers, while Jennifer monitored police communications for clues. By dawn, their shared fury forged something neither had anticipated, a partnership beyond mere strategic alliance. "We need to accelerate the timeline," Bruno decided, fatigue visible only in the slight shadows beneath his eyes as he studied their evidence board. Jennifer nodded, her police training giving way to a deeper, more primal sense of justice. "I can access my hidden files tomorrow," she determined, checking her healing wounds with clinical detachment. "I'm strong enough now, and they won't expect me to appear so soon after their display of force." The plan they crafted over breakfast blended Jennifer's investigative precision with Bruno's strategic brilliance, each contributing strengths the other lacked. They worked in seamless coordination, completing each other's thoughts with uncanny synchronicity. That afternoon, Bruno found himself watching Jennifer as she prepared weapons for their mission, her movements efficient and practiced. Something unfamiliar stirred within him, not just respect or alliance, but a deeper connection he hadn't permitted himself to feel since losing his sister. Similar thoughts crossed Jennifer's mind as she caught Bruno's gaze, the lines between duty and desire, right and wrong, beginning to blur in ways her academy training never prepared her for. The world's simplistic divisions of good and evil seemed childishly inadequate in the face of what they'd discovered together. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Bruno broke the weighted silence between them, "know that meeting you has changed how I see the world. Perhaps there's more common ground between us than either side wants to admit. If you're still with us on this wild journey, smash that like button and subscribe. The story is about to reach its most shocking turning point. What happens when a detective and a mafia boss risk everything to expose corruption at the highest levels?" Their operation began at dawn, Jennifer disguised as a cleaning service worker, Bruno's most trusted men positioned strategically around the university library, where she had hidden microfilmed evidence inside a hollowed-out classic philosophy text that no one ever borrowed. Bruno monitored from a distance, providing overwatch through security cameras his team had hacked, heart racing with unfamiliar anxiety as Jennifer disappeared into the building. For the first time in years, someone else's safety concerned him more than his own interests. The library proved mercifully empty at that early hour, allowing Jennifer to retrieve the microfilm without drawing attention. As she secured the precious evidence, movement at the entrance caught Bruno's attention through the surveillance feed. Detective Winters had arrived with 2 officers. "Company," Bruno warned through their secure communication line, watching Jennifer instantly shift into tactical mode, transforming her posture and movements to avoid recognition as she navigated toward the emergency exit he had identified in their planning. The backup route led her through maintenance corridors and eventually to a service delivery area, where Bruno's driver waited, engine running. Jennifer slid into the back seat, clutching the evidence that could bring down the entire corrupt network, her eyes bright with vindicating triumph. Back at the safe house, they processed the microfilm immediately, revealing a comprehensive catalog of corruption more extensive than even they had imagined. Kickbacks, evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and strategic case assignments spanning a decade of systematic abuse. Most damning was footage Jennifer had secretly recorded of Commissioner Wallace explicitly ordering the suppression of evidence in cases involving politicians and businessmen connected to his hidden network. "This is my insurance policy," her voice explained on the recording, unwittingly prophetic. Bruno watched Jennifer's face as she saw the recording of her own supposed allies plotting her murder, Wallace's cold voice instructing Winters to make it look like a gang hit after she'd naively approached him with initial evidence of departmental corruption. "They'll deny everything," Jennifer said softly, the weight of betrayal evident in her voice. "Wallace has judges, prosecutors, and half the force in his pocket. Even with this evidence, the system is designed to protect its own." Bruno's response surprised them both. He gently took her hand, his touch conveying understanding beyond words. "Then we don't use their system," he proposed. The strategic brilliance that built his empire now focused on justice rather than profit. Their new plan formed organically. They would broadcast the evidence simultaneously to multiple outlets, leveraging both Bruno's underworld connections and Jennifer's few remaining trusted contacts in federal law enforcement outside the commissioner's influence. 3 days of meticulous preparation followed, creating secure digital packages with irrefutable evidence that could not be traced back to either of them. Bruno called in favors from hackers, journalists, and even rival organizations who would benefit from Wallace's downfall. The night before they were set to release everything, Jennifer found Bruno alone on the balcony, his usual imposing presence softened by moonlight and contemplation. "What will you do after?" she asked, the question addressing the uncertain future neither had dared discuss. Bruno turned, his eyes meeting hers with unusual vulnerability. "I've been thinking about legitimate businesses," he admitted, the words surprising even himself. "My organization already runs several successful legal operations. Perhaps it's time for transformation rather than constant war." Jennifer moved closer, the distance between them shrinking both physically and metaphorically as she took his hand. "I can't go back to the force," she acknowledged, the statement both resignation and liberation. "But I still believe in justice, just not the system as it exists now." Morning arrived with unexpected complications. Bruno's security chief burst in with news that the FBI had established surveillance on all of Wallace's key associates. "Someone leaked information about the corruption network," he reported, showing satellite images of federal agents positioning around the city. Jennifer and Bruno exchanged concerned glances, their carefully constructed plan now competing with federal intervention that could either help or hinder their mission. "We need to move faster," Jennifer decided, her detective instincts sensing the narrowing window of opportunity. Bruno nodded, immediately contacting his network to accelerate their timeline, while Jennifer prepared the evidence packages for immediate distribution. Their synchronized efficiency spoke of a partnership forged in adversity that had grown into something neither had anticipated. The stakes escalated further when Bruno's sources identified unmarked vehicles outside 3 of his properties, a clear indication that Wallace had connected him to Jennifer's survival. "They're closing in," Bruno observed, his usual calm tinged with new urgency. Jennifer reviewed their digital evidence one final time, ensuring nothing could be traced back to them or dismissed as fabrication. "Once we release this, there's no going back for either of us," she reminded him, offering one last chance to reconsider their course. Bruno's response came without hesitation, his hand covering hers on the keyboard. "Some lines, once crossed, change everything," he stated simply, the weight of his decision evident in his eyes as they initiated the automated distribution sequence together. Within hours, every news outlet in the city received identical packages containing irrefutable evidence of corruption reaching the highest levels of law enforcement and city government. Social media platforms exploded with video clips showing Wallace and his network discussing illegal operations. The response was swift and chaotic. Wallace held an emergency press conference denouncing the evidence as fabricated by criminal elements, while behind the scenes, his network scrambled to destroy additional evidence and coordinate their denials. Bruno and Jennifer monitored the unfolding chaos from a secure location, watching as federal agents moved to secure potential evidence before Wallace's people could destroy it. The city seemed to hold its collective breath as decades of corruption were exposed to public scrutiny. What they hadn't anticipated was Wallace's desperate countermove, a citywide manhunt for Jennifer, now publicly accused of fabricating evidence and collaborating with organized crime to discredit honest public servants. Her police photo appeared on every screen, branded as a traitor. "He's trying to control the narrative," Jennifer analyzed, her years of training allowing her to remain analytical, despite seeing herself vilified by the very institution she had served faithfully. Classic misdirection. Make me the story instead of the corruption. The most shocking development came that evening. Bruno's sister's case was suddenly reopened, with Wallace publicly suggesting she had been killed due to her criminal connections rather than her anti-corruption efforts, effectively rewriting history to tarnish both their reputations. This personal attack crossed a line that strategy and planning couldn't have prepared Bruno for. Jennifer witnessed something few had seen: the controlled crime lord giving way to raw human grief and rage as his sister's memory was desecrated for political convenience. "We need to end this," Bruno stated with dangerous quietness, the kind that preceded his most decisive actions. Not just expose the corruption, but ensure Wallace and everyone involved face consequences they cannot escape through their rigged system. The plan they formulated that night went beyond evidence and exposure. They would personally confront Wallace with irrefutable proof in a situation where he could neither deny nor escape, forcing a confession that would destroy any attempt to control the narrative. Before we continue this incredible story, take a moment to hit subscribe if you haven't already. You won't want to miss how this shocking confrontation between a mafia boss, a detective, and the corrupt police commissioner changes everything. The opportunity came 3 days later, when Wallace scheduled a private fundraising event at the prestigious Harbor View Hotel. Bruno's connections provided security passes and staff uniforms, allowing them access to the restricted upper floors where Wallace had reserved the penthouse suite. Jennifer studied the hotel's floor plans, identifying optimal entry points and potential escape routes, while Bruno arranged for discreet backup positioned throughout the building. Their plan required perfect timing and the element of surprise to succeed. As evening fell, they entered the hotel separately, Jennifer disguised as catering staff, Bruno as a wealthy donor arriving for the exclusive event. They communicated through nearly imperceptible earpieces, coordinating their movements with military precision. The fundraiser buzzed with nervous energy, attendees aware of the corruption allegations but present nonetheless, demonstrating their allegiance to Wallace's power structure despite public scrutiny. Jennifer observed judges, business leaders, and senior officers mingling with practiced smiles that failed to reach their eyes. From across the room, she spotted Detective Winters engaged in tense conversation with Wallace, both men wearing the strained expressions of those feeling pressure from all sides. Jennifer fought the instinctive surge of betrayal, focusing instead on the mission that would bring them both to justice. Bruno navigated the crowd with natural authority, his years commanding respect, making him appear to belong among the city's elite. Carefully planted recording devices in flower arrangements and beneath tables would capture every incriminating word spoken throughout the evening. As the event reached its peak, Wallace excused himself, heading toward his private suite for what his schedule listed as an important call. This was the moment they had planned for, the brief window when he would be isolated from his security detail. Jennifer moved first, using service corridors to reach the suite before Wallace arrived. Bruno followed a separate path, timing his arrival to coincide perfectly with the commissioner's, creating the perception of a chance encounter in the hallway. Wallace's face registered first confusion, then shock, as Bruno introduced himself with cold politeness, effectively trapping the commissioner between himself and the suite where Jennifer waited. "Commissioner Wallace, I believe we have mutual interest to discuss," Bruno stated, his tone making clear this was not a request. Inside the suite, Wallace found himself facing the supposedly dead detective, his carefully constructed world crumbling as Jennifer played recordings of his own voice ordering her murder. "Your loyal attack dog Winters failed his assignment," she informed him with dangerous calm. "What do you want?" Wallace demanded, false bravado failing to mask the fear in his eyes as he realized both exits were blocked and his security detail remained downstairs, unaware of his predicament. "Money? Safe passage out of the country? Name your price." Bruno's laugh held no humor, only the cold certainty of someone whose patience had reached its limit. "This isn't a negotiation," he clarified, placing a phone on the table between them. "It's a confession. You're going to admit every crime, every corrupt deal, every murder, including my sister's." Wallace's refusal was predictable, as was his attempt to reach for the concealed weapon beneath his jacket. Jennifer disarmed him with practiced efficiency, the commissioner's expression changing from confidence to the dawning realization that his decades of manipulation had finally caught up with him. The next hour unfolded with methodical precision, as Bruno and Jennifer presented evidence piece by piece, building an inescapable case while recording Wallace's increasingly desperate responses. His eventual breakdown came not from physical intimidation, but the psychological pressure of confronting his own documented crimes. The confession they extracted proved even more valuable than anticipated. Wallace implicated over 30 high-ranking officials, including the mayor's chief of staff, 3 judges, and business leaders who had facilitated money laundering through city contracts for decades. By morning, federal agents had arrested 17 key figures in the corruption network, acting on anonymous tips that directed them to additional evidence Wallace had kept as his own insurance policy. The city awoke to headlines declaring the largest corruption bust in its history. Jennifer watched the news coverage from a coastal hideaway 100 miles from the city, her supposed death providing perfect cover as she contemplated a future she had never imagined for herself. The weight of her badge no longer defined her purpose or identity. Bruno joined her on the balcony overlooking the ocean, 2 cups of coffee in hand and a stillness between them that required no words. They had achieved justice through methods neither could have envisioned weeks earlier, crossing boundaries that could never be uncrossed. Winters confessed, Bruno noted, showing her a news alert on his phone. Turned state's evidence against the entire network in exchange for a reduced sentence. Your name has been cleared posthumously. Quite convenient since the world still thinks you're dead. Jennifer accepted this news with surprising serenity, watching gulls circle above the waves. Dead to my old life, she acknowledged. But perhaps that's necessary for something new to begin. The system I believed in was an illusion. I see that clearly now. The rebuilding of Bruno's legitimate businesses had already begun, his organization pivoting away from criminal enterprises toward community development in neighborhoods long neglected by official channels. His unique understanding of both worlds positioned him to bridge gaps traditional leaders couldn't approach. For 2 weeks, they existed in peaceful limbo, healing from both physical and emotional wounds, while discussing possibilities neither had dared consider before. Their unique partnership had evolved into something deeper, a connection forged in adversity and tempered by mutual respect. I've been thinking about justice outside the system, Jennifer shared one evening, as sunset painted the horizon in colors that seemed to symbolize transformation. Not vigilante justice, but building something that addresses the needs the current system ignores. Bruno considered her words thoughtfully, seeing potential where others might see only obstacles. My resources, your knowledge of law enforcement gaps, he mused, the strategist in him already mapping possibilities. We could create something unprecedented. Their vision took shape gradually, a foundation that would support whistleblowers, fund investigations into corruption, and provide resources to communities damaged by systemic failure. Something that honored Bruno's sister's memory and Jennifer's commitment to true justice, rather than procedural illusion. Their first major project targeted the warehouse district where they had first met, transforming abandoned buildings into community centers, offering legal aid, job training, and safe spaces for at-risk youth. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them, rebirth beginning at the site of what should have been death. International connections Bruno had once used for less legitimate purposes now served their foundation, bringing expertise in anti-corruption measures from countries that had successfully reformed similar systemic problems. Jennifer's law enforcement knowledge identified vulnerabilities they could address effectively. The media occasionally speculated about the mysterious benefactors behind the Phoenix Foundation, investigative reporters drawing close to the truth without ever connecting all the dots. Their anonymity became another shared secret, another bond in a relationship built on understanding what others couldn't. On rare occasions when their work brought them close to Jennifer's former colleagues, she watched from a distance, a ghost observing her past life. These moments always ended with Bruno's steady presence beside her, a silent reminder that what they had built together offered more meaningful justice than what she had left behind. 3 months after the warehouse district encounter that brought them together, they stood before the newly established Phoenix Foundation, named for the rebirth that had brought them both to this unexpected moment. Former enemies, now partners in every sense of the word. The transition wasn't without challenges. Bruno's past would always shadow them, and Jennifer's presumed death required maintaining careful distance from her former life. Yet together, they navigated these complexities with the same synchronized partnership that had toppled Wallace's empire. As federal investigations continued to unravel corruption throughout the city, Bruno and Jennifer watched from a distance, their direct involvement complete, but their commitment to transformation ongoing. The seeds they had planted would continue growing long after the headlines faded. Their personal relationship evolved alongside their professional one, the barriers between cop and criminal dissolving as they recognized in each other what they truly were, 2 people committed to justice, willing to defy convention, and expectation to achieve something meaningful. Thank you all for following this incredible story. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button, like, and share this video with everyone who appreciates stories about unexpected alliances and true justice. Your support makes it possible for us to continue bringing you these shocking real-life stories that challenge everything you thought you knew.